We often get to the end of that reading and we're not so sure we want to say, "Praise to you, O Christ."
Yeah.
These readings held some challenges for us today. Whether it's in Isaiah and God destroying one city to create this new place, or even in the Psalm, the idea of a feast being prepared for us, but in the presence of our enemies. Or here, where we're not so sure what to make of this wedding banquet, and what it means to look at God's realm, and how that is called into being. So I think that what we will do is we will focus primarily with the stories for today on this idea of feast and banquet, as the youth will be sharing their stories. We do see this image of a banquet on the holy mountain, to which all are invited. We hear about the table set in the midst of difficult situations, the challenges in our lives, the enemies that surround us. We hear about the king preparing a banquet, and people not necessarily being eager or wanting to show up, struggling with that. And then God ushering in another invitation in a not so loving manner, sending out the troops. And yet we hear that the wedding banquet is filled. That again there is a place of welcome for those with the least. These are challenging readings, but there is something powerful about coming to the feast. The feast of God made known for the people of God. Now, just over 2.5 months ago, 22 people from Calvary, Bethel, and Our Savior's joined up with 47 people from Pilgrim Congregational Church in Southborough, Massachusetts. Our congregations met in New York City at 103rd and in Amsterdam at Hostel International. There we got to know each other over a meal. We got to experience our own little banquet in the courtyard in Manhattan. And then over the course of the week, we went to work. We spent 4 days working at 3 churches in the South Bronx. Transfiguration Lutheran Church, that some of you have maybe got to know through the work of Heidi Newmark and Paul Block, and also 2 Episcopal churches. You will hear more about each of them. Now, throughout the week, there were meals, feasts, and banquets set before us that taught us about God and about God's people. It taught us about a voice that welcomes and calls out to all on the streets. Our hearts and our minds were stretched to think about God's promised mercy and justice, and about love being proclaimed through simple conversations, through painting and weeding, sweeping, upholstering, cleaning, and always eating. With the theme, "We love love," we experience God preparing the table in open hearts for us and for the people that we encounter. These are reflections on that experience.
On just our second day in New York, I found the thing that stuck out most to me from our trip, and it was our day in Harlem. We all walked to Harlem knowing we would be going to a church service, but none of us really knew what to expect. We walked up to the church to some amazing music. It was simple, 1 guitar player, 2 little boys playing on the drums, but I immediately felt welcome. During the service, we got time to talk to some of the members of New Song Church, and they all had something to tell us about New York or Harlem. That made me very excited about our move to come. Afterwards, we met up with Adrienne, the pastor, and her husband that gave us some history as we walked around Harlem. They had many stories to share, hard stories. They talked about the new Harlem versus the old Harlem and the tension that has been created. The whole time there were these 2 little boys that I couldn't take my eyes off of. When we went to the place we were all going to enjoy a meal together, I finally got some time to get to know the boys. Kwame was the first one I really
live so close to Boston. But in fact, we came from a small town outside Boston and weren't very used to busy city life. Likewise, they assumed that we were small town people who lived on farms. When actually, most of us had grown up in Minneapolis and St. Paul. The differences were also apparent in terms of church congregations and traditions. The Minnesota group was comprised of 3 small churches, whereas the Massachusetts group was from one big church with an extensive youth group. Once we started working together in the Bronx, it became easier to get to know other people. We had to rely on each other for help and assistance in making these churches beautiful. Despite the differences in our hometowns and churches, both our groups grew close throughout the week. It was amazing to see 3 churches from the Midwest come together first, then bond with a larger group from New England to do community service in 3 churches in the South Bronx. 7 communities coming together to do one thing: do God's work and spread God's love.
So the next day, Monday, we started working with the 3 churches in New York. And so Kaya and I worked at Transfiguration. And our first day was Monday, which also happened to be Transfiguration's food shelf day. And so once a week, they would have a bunch of food that they gave out by their doors at the front. And they had, we worked for the first half of that day bagging a bunch of food and putting it all in plastic bags. And the pews, it was a sort of small church, but the pews were completely filled with these plastic bags. And then we went out on right around the entrance to the building, and we gave out little numbers for people that had gathered around to get food. And so that was their system. They would give out these little numbers, and then when we were all ready to go, we started calling out the numbers. So we would call out 1, and the person who had won would come up, and then we would call usually groups of 5. But since this community it had a high Latino population, there was a lot of Spanish, and a lot of people didn't understand which numbers were being called, or what they were supposed to do. And many of the people had come more than just once, and there was this one man, Asmar, who helped us with this whole thing, and he knew everyone there. But there were some new people, and so it was Grace from our Saviors, Kaya, and I that were helping with the food shelf. And we would call out the numbers, and we would use our minimal Spanish to try to help call out the numbers in Spanish. And it was actually really wonderful, because all the people were just coming up and saying, thank you so much, and getting the food and saying, is there any more, and asking. And when we ran out of numbers, because there were only a certain amount of bags, it was about 120, I think, and they did this every Monday, we had to turn some people away and say, next week, and that was hard, because you don't want to turn anyone away. You want to give everyone food, and you want to make sure everyone gets the same amount. But we had to do that too. But it's still, all in all, I thought it was a great experience, because we got to see this new system of the food shelf there, and how this community in the South Bronx that wasn't a rich church that could afford lunch was still able to give away so much and help everyone. And that really stuck with me.